we're talking about Vikings. Oh, well, hello there. Welcome back to the channel. Go ahead and dispose of this bad boy. We're talking about some Viking swords. That is not a Viking sword. This is your Viking sword. Today, we're talking about some high-status Viking swords. This one is made by Murillo Ferreira out of Mexico. And just by a quick look at that, you can see that it is absolutely stunning. Looking down the front of the blade, you can see we have a nice, deep fuller going up the blade. It's not a blood groove. Anyone who tells you that is wrong, but that fuller is there, so that way, when you stick it into an opponent, it's less likely to bend. It also makes it a little bit more rigid, edge to edge. You'll notice this sword has basically no flex in it. Now, for the period that this is from, we're dealing with large groups of people who aren't wearing any type of armor. Most people are wearing pretty much what I'm wearing, and they have a shield of some sort. So if you can imagine this sword being paired with a shield, that's kind of the weapon set that we would imagine most Vikings would have. I've seen this bad boy on the channel before. This right here is going to be your high status weapon that a lot of you guys are going to be wielding, going after peasants who are wearing more attire like I'm wearing, just some cloth armor, maybe a hat, and having that shield on them. But this type of weapon right here, this is going to be a status item. This is the Danax by Arms and Armor. Most of the time, when we're dealing with people from the period, you're going to be dealing with like spear and shield troops. And these bad boys, these are the scary ones that would go in and charge in and start smacking people. But let's say that we are going to be standing more in a line. We're not going to be standing one group behind, smacking people with the axe, swinging over, smacking through helmets, hitting people with chainmail, all the kind of crazy stuff. Let's say that we are a commander of troops, and we have some need to be able to protect ourselves as well as show off a little bit. That's a little bit what this sword comes into place. You can see how I'm wearing this scabbard right here. I have just a loop over the top of me that's holding it in place, and that allows it to float pretty freely while I'm working. Now this bad boy sits pretty close to my body right here. I can hop, I can turn about, I can bend down, I can pick up my axe, I can swing it, I can drop my axe, and with one hand, because of the way that the belt is on, I can pull out my sword and be ready to fight my opponents. Now this type of a sword, you'll notice, has basically no hand protection on it. This is in an era as well when most people are going to be barehanded or wearing some kind of glove. And the glove is mostly there just to maintain a grip on your sword. You're not going to have a ton of protection, a ton of plates being put there in your hand at all. So, most of the time, this guy's going to be used with a shield. Now, the shield was incredibly important, especially for cultures that didn't have a whole ton of armor. And if we're talking about the Vikings or the Norse, I'm coming across the sea, I don't want to wear a whole ton of stuff, or maybe I am too poor to afford armor. This is going to be my primary defense mechanism. And you can see, as I'm cutting, whoop, I can cover one whole section of my body as I cut towards you, thrust, somebody's coming over here, you can cut. It's a fairly maneuverable piece of equipment. Somebody's cutting in my head, whoa. I can make those stabs, I can cover, I can do all kinds of stuff. So the shield is more of a weapon set than just a primarily defensive measure. That big metal boss on the front you can use to punch your opponent. But this type of a sword was used with a shield like that. You wouldn't usually see just this being held unless I'm walking around the town. So don't imagine that sword as being the only thing that we're going to be carrying. Let's look at this one specifically. This one is made again by Murillo Ferreira. I've had no interactions with this guy previous to meeting this sword. So if we look at it, you can see it has this really interesting, almost handmade look to it. The blade, or the guard right there, is made out of some kind of a brass, and it is rigid and tight. It fits into the scabbard fairly well, it doesn't fall out, and it looks like something that we would find in the period. I'll go ahead and show you a couple of swords. Immediately when I saw this on Sword Buyer's Guide, I noted that it looked very similar to a lot of these swords that you find in museums. The Charlemagne sword, it's called Joyeuse. or joyous in just English, has a very similar colored hilt made of some type of gold and bronze, some kind of alloy steel that sits right there. Now, why would we want a bronze hilt like that in a Viking context or in a Norse context? Well, there's a couple of reasons that I can think of. So if you look at pretty much any sword that anyone has ever, I'll just go ahead and pull out a different style of arming sword here really quick. So right here, you can see we have just that normal stereotypical guard, and this sword's been very well oiled. But if we just look there at the guard, you can see we're just getting this little tiny bit of rust. And if I am a high-status gentleman, even if I have squires maintaining all of my equipment, I'm going to have some rust build up somewhere. With brass, it's not going to rust. It's also not going to decay if we're on the high seas. So if I am a Viking, and I am traveling the high seas, or I am stalking some trade caravan on the deserts, or I'm looking out for Roman soldiers out on the frontier, having something that's not going to deteriorate is really, really good for you. The grip is extremely comfortable. You might think it looks kind of blocky, but if you look there at your grip right there, it actually tapers in. And as you grab it, your fingers fall into that little groove right down the center, and it feels extremely comfortable to hold. Now the sword itself feels very light. This one's just about 2.5 pounds, and it feels extremely well made. I think the guard has been cast against the blade too, so it's an extremely tight fit. If you look there down the fuller of the blade, you can see we have just a little tiny gap developing right as it goes into the guard, but nothing too crazy. So if this happened to get wet and it got down in there, that might cause a problem. But because it's in our sheath most of the time, ideally that'll never happen. Now this type of a sheath came with the sword, and it's a very interesting attachment method. You can see there, it's literally just a strap with a belt hook on it. You sling over the top of yourself and have it just like that. Now this is a configuration very similar to what the Romans would have been carrying, except this sword, if I was Roman, wouldn't be on my right side, it'd be on my left side, because I need to be able to draw my sword all the way up with one hand and have my shield in the other fairly swiftly. So, and that won't work if your sword is this long. So later period, so we're talking like 6th, 7th, 8th century, the Romans moved from their gladius to a spatha-sized sword, and that's what this evolved from. Now this sword is also very, very sharp. It came to me this way, and it's a super hard steel. So when I tap it, let's see if you can hear it. You can hear it rings like a bell. But this type of a sword is not flexible at all. Now, why would we not have any flex in a sword like this? If we look really early in period, there is less good iron generally. This is made out of a modern mono steel, so we don't have to worry about that. But because it's of less good iron, having a deep, wide fuller and a long blade that's stiff, so it's less likely to bend in combat, I can stab that into an opponent through mail armor a lot easier than having something short and flexible. Get my fingerprints off that. So if I have a very rigid blade, this is a lot more likely to poke through something that's hard and resistive than something that's a little bit more floppy would be. So in conclusion, this is just a super handy, really well-made sword. And this, believe it or not, is one of the less nice-looking swords that Murillo makes. I'll post some pictures of some different things that he's putting together with ivory grips and jeweled hilts. He does an amazing job. Now, he has no idea who I am. Now, this sword, we talked about it moving fairly well. It's not going to be as nimble as something like a rapier. But if I'm cutting just things in my backyard, or I'm doing crazy powerful cuts against big wooden targets, or if I'm in period chopping against things like shields, armor, this is going to be a great option. This would definitely be a sword to be using in a zombie apocalypse scenario. First, because you don't need to have a guard if they don't have swords. So real quick, before we go, I wanted to show you this sword as well. It's one that I was considering doing a review on, but it's kind of in the same context as our other one. This is the single-edged Viking sword from Belauer Arms. So comment below if you want to see me swing this guy around.
land where shadows play. Dragons rise at break of day. Hammers echo through the mist. Twilight whispers magic kiss.